element of the uncontrollable things that go into the competitions, right? It's like we try to control for them, of course, but at some point you just have to embrace that, you know?
Yeah,
And
well,
if
I
you,
think so. I disagree with certain people when they say, oh, we need to move the world's inside and we need to control all the environments and, blah, blah, blah. I disagree. A big part of this game is the elements and the strategy and so on. How's it going, Jim? It's a hat day for me today.
yeah, well, most days become a hat day before the end of the day for me as well. So,
I'm getting a haircut on Tuesday because then my wife and I are going to Germany to play with Inverary. So,
yeah,
but like my hair's a disaster right now, but I can't justify cutting it now if I'm going to be
right.
traveling.
You got
So,
to have that fresh cut when you're over there. Yeah.
because I know everyone was wondering, they tune in to see what fashion choices we've made, Jim.
That's the main reason.
Yeah, the bagpipe dad fashion. Yeah.
Man. Well, speaking of being a dad too, I don't know about you, but I spent a lot of time the last couple days refilling a humidifier for my kid's bedroom where I
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
between two
It's
and three kids sleeping.
it's humidifier season, isn't it?
Aside from being humidifier season, it's also kids being sick season. So I've got
Yeah.
sick kids in a dry season. Plus, I live in a very dry place anyway. We can bust through a humidifier tank pretty quick and easy around these
Yeah.
parts these days.
We're very blessed
Mm.
because the last couple of years, my parents, they like to dip their toe in the pool of Florida possibilities, you
Ah,
know?
yes, gotcha.
And so, but they,
It's
so
a stage of life. We all
yeah,
get there
I don't
eventually.
know. I
Yeah.
don't think they're, I don't know if I see them becoming snowbirds, but you never know. But
Yeah.
my point is, they've always kind of gone to Florida for, a week or two or whatever, like right around this time of year. And so,
Hmm.
well, basically spring break week for the
Mm.
kids. But they get a big Airbnb and they welcome us to
That's
stay
fun.
with them
Yeah.
and it usually ends up being a little more than a week. So like where I'm going with that is, man, winter sucks so bad, Jim. The kids get sick and it's so cold and you get bored because you're stuck inside and we have a very small house and
Mm.
there's no American Ninja Lab or
Ah,
what's
yeah.
it called? American Ninja Warrior courses.
Right.
We haven't installed one in our house because we don't really have room.
Hmm.
So we're just pent up. And so we're really looking forward to getting away and
I
doing
I
that and
understand.
feeling some warm rays.
I totally get the appeal, but I have a little sister who lived in Florida for a little while, moved back around here about the time she had her first kid because she, just like me, shares my anxiety about gators.
Yeah. So like the Florida communities, they have those little ponds
Hmm.
and I don't know what you call them, but basically like
Gator pools, that's what I call them.
well, like I'm going somewhere with this
Yeah.
story. So they have these things in these communities, and I think it's to keep the roads from flooding. And so they have just little low recessed places for the water to pool up. But anyway, we just didn't think that much of it heading out in the car. And then I forget who said it, but like, looks like there's an alligator over there. And this little thing was like right on the other side of the fence from our Airbnb.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Anyway,
the thing, man.
bottom
You see
line,
them crawling through backyards and stuff.
bottom line, Gary the Gator,
Yeah.
giant gator, just
Mm.
hanging out like,
Yeah.
20 feet from the kids. And I guess conceptually, he's not getting into the pool or anything, but
You can imagine it happening pretty easily, though, can't you?
yes, exactly. Well, it's like, kids don't go out to the pool
Yeah.
unless the grown up at least goes out and has a look around first.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
I'm not from, maybe Floridians don't worry about it, but yes, the
Yep.
gator anxiety it's real. It's a real thing.
Yeah. And aside from gator anxiety, also like me personally, I actually don't handle humidity super well. And maybe that's partly because I grew up in
Agree.
such a dry place. But
I'm okay with humidity. I mean, I don't love it. I'm okay with humidity. I just hate direct sunlight.
yeah.
I hate it. Even in New York, I'm a
Situation.
shade guy. Give
Yeah.
me shade or give me death.
So you want to
That
be out in the sun, but not in the
it's
sun.
like, yeah, exactly. I'm okay if it's really hot out. I mean, I'm sweaty and I'm gross, but I'm okay. But I need to be in the shade. Like the
Mm.
moment I go into the sun, it's like, nah.
You ever get one
And
of those
so,
umbrella hats?
yeah, I've had an umbrella hat and I think your skin knows. And I'm
Mm.
very fair skinned. Your skin
Mm.
knows, nah, you shouldn't be doing this.
Mm.
Stop with that.
Well,
Sunburns. Sunburns are my least favorite thing in the whole world. But, there you go.
If you're going to pick a sport, bagpipes is a good sport for that because at least the world championships are usually under rain clouds, it seems. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Not always, but usually. Although I feel like, and this might be made up, but when the sun comes out in Scotland, It's weirdly more intense.
Mm.
It might not be hotter, but I feel like you get sunburned so fast in Scotland.
Mm.
And maybe it's just because putting on sunscreen doesn't even cross your mind. That might be really what it is. But it just feels like it happens fast.
Mm.
You can go out to the games in Scotland and you'd be playing, and yeah, maybe the sun comes out for 30 minutes, but then by the end of the day, you have a sunburn.
I wonder, I'm not a scientist of any kind, but wouldn't it be funny to find out that the fine mist that's left in the air after rain actually has a magnifying glass effect on the sun's rays,
Yeah.
and so it becomes more intense as a result?
I heard a radical theory that it has to do with longitude. Latitude? Latitude. It has to do with latitude.
Which was latitude is, yeah, okay, that one, yeah.
I have no idea if that even remotely would have any foundation in reality, but the idea that because Scotland is significantly further north, and so the angles,
Yeah, the
hits
axis,
the
the
atmosphere
tilted
and
thing,
then
yeah.
refract. I don't know, people. Look it up. What is this?
This is amateur scientist parenting hour on the fashion show that
This
is
is
the
what
Dojo U.
This is what the people tune in for. Well, by the way, Jim, though, here's me. I'm getting good. Segue time.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about amateur science today.
Okay, yeah. Let's talk about amateur science. Let's add a dash of humidity to it too. Why don't we?
Yeah, well, we've already talked about humidity, so well played.
See if alligators come into it too. We'll see.
They thought we were talking about nothing, but we were talking about heat. We were talking about humidity. We were talking about cloud cover. We're talking about differences in environments.
We knew exactly what we were doing.
We
and
knew
we're
it.
bringing it in for a smooth landing now.
I know. But what a perfect time for an advertisement for the Droning On podcast.
Hey, look at that.
We knew exactly what we were doing.
So tell me, Andrew Douglas, what is a hygrometer?
Yeah, we're talking about hygrometers today, Jim.
That's a weird word.
So I think we've talked a little bit about how Uncle Andrew, he's not the biggest fan of the tuners.
Little screens that show digital numbers is not the kind of thing I expect you to be excited about.
Now, look, the digital tuner, without going into the whole thing, it can be a useful tool. I think the problem with the digital tuners is people get hooked on it. It's sort of the Faustian bargain.
That's a fun phrase.
You know what a Faustian bargain is?
Nope.
I think it's the root of doing a deal with the devil. I think that was Faust. I think Faust was some bro, and he meets the devil, and the devil's like, yo, bro, if you give me your soul, I'll give you like riches and fame and probably other things. The only downside is I own your soul forever. I think it's that. I think it's that basic thing. So,
I just Googled. I think you're spot on there. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Faustian bargain is doing a deal with the devil, and I think the digital tuner is that's the bagpipers deal with the devil. It's like, hey Jim, hey, I'm gonna help you get your pipes in the ballpark without you having to do anything. You just have to.
I sign on the dotted line.
Yeah.
There goes my soul.
Just turn me on, Jim. That came out wrong.
Gonna save that soundbite for future blackmailing purposes.
Just do it. Just do it. Just press my button. I think the scary thing is it does help you get your pipes in the ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
And so people are like, ooh, this is the way, but it's not the way. And anyway, we talked about that at length. So I'm not the hugest fan of that, but one of the things I have become a fan of over the years is a hygrometer. And let me tell you that people like stories, Jim. Can I tell you a story?
Tell me a story, absolutely.
So when I first joined I didn't even wait for your permission, and I talked right over you. Sorry about that. So anyway, when I joined the Inverary District Pipe Band, which by the way, I only did because I thought it was a kind of ridiculous idea. My friend Keegan Sheehan had recently joined the Inverary District Pipe Band and came up in conversation. And my wife is like, how the hell is he doing that? Isn't he going to school? Like, how's this happening? And then he explained the commitment to play in the band, and she's like, wait, what? That's all it is? Basically, you practice on your own and then you fly in at select points during the season. And that's how this thing all got started. And then she was like, well, yeah, do that, bro. Like, why haven't you been doing that already kind of thing? Yeah. So anyway, I ended up joining Inverary, but then I was on Skype with Stuart Liddell, and his big thing was, we're playing all cane from now on, cane drone reads. And I've done a little bit of work with cane drone reads over the years, but this was a great opportunity to dig in. Because basically, if you want to play in the band, you're playing full cane. And so the experiments began. And one of the things about cane drone reeds that's really difficult is if they get too dry, they don't work.
Yeah.
It's sort of the opposite of it, in a way. It's sort of the opposite of the synthetic drone reed where you got to keep them dry. And if they get wet, they stop working.
Yeah.
Like cane is almost the other way around. I mean, cane can still get saturated and it's going to stop working. but you actually need that level of moisture in order for things to work right. And then Scotland, I think, has a steadier sort of humidity level.
Yeah.
But notice I said the words there, I think, right?
Mhm.
Scotland, I
This is
think, has
important.
a steadier humidity level. And then New York is obviously, I guess, dry in the winter and obviously hot and dry in the summer. And so I came up with the idea, and this happened on my own, but I don't think I'm the only piper that has ever had this idea. But I went on Amazon and I bought these things, hygrometers. Boink.
Hmm.
And I don't know if this is gonna, this looks reverse when I hold it up, but probably in the video.
I think it'll
be,
come out right in the video.
And you could see right now in my room, I think it says, yeah, it's 26% humidity. And then it says it's 72 degrees Fahrenheit. It might actually just be saying that because I'm holding it in my hands and I made it a little bit warmer. So you do have to take those out and you have to let them sit for a few minutes to like actually figure out what's going on. For example, it just went up to 30%. And I'm telling you right now, it's because I had my hand near it.
That makes sense.
But anyway, these hygrometers are really interesting. And I have a bunch. They're wicked cheap on Amazon. You can get like a 3-pack for $15 or something. I got the hygrometer so I could keep an eye on what the moisture levels were and what was going on. And I've just sort of hung out with these gadgets now for almost 10 years.
After that much time, have you developed an ability to accurately guess what the humidity is based on what it feels like, having checked in on it regularly?
Not exactly. For example, although you definitely develop hunches and they tend to be true. Yeah.
But I interrupted you. Go ahead. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I was going in a similar direction where over time with these hygrometers hanging around, I can start to be able to predict what my bagpipes are going to do that day based on what the hygrometer says. And it's happened very gradually. And there's still some mysteries I haven't figured out. But it's very interesting. And so like for starters, I would recommend that every bagpiper purchases some hygrometers, more than one, and put them around. Absolutely, you want one actually physically in your pipe case. And then you want one out in the air in your practice room for starters. I have one here and I also have one across the room. And just, whenever I'm bored, I kind of just look around and look at what's going on. This one insists that it is 73 degrees. I don't know what that's all about. This one says 71. But anyway, it's 70 something. Which is interesting because I'm feeling chilly.
There's that winter kids got you sick. Might be the beginning of it.
Yeah, we had a really warm day last week where the humidity kind of breaks. And so it becomes a little bit more humid suddenly. And the cane journal reeds sounded great that day and operated really nicely for me.
Interesting.
And then vice versa is also true. So I can tell you right now that at 25% humidity, even though it's better than what it sometimes gets to, but I can tell you that when I play my pipes today, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle to get them to work properly. Not a struggle, but it's just going to take a while.
Is it a hygrometer that is in that chanter cap device that you see advertised around?
Yep, exactly. Yori sort of installed that digital hygrometer right into his tone protector cap, which is pretty cool. But that one, the sensor is inside the chanter cap. So that's telling you specifically what the reed is experiencing. It's not necessarily telling you, if you took it out of the cap, it would, but it's not telling you what the general environment is giving you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jim. Go ahead.
I was going to sidetrack you. I just, as you've been describing the uses of the hygrometers, I've been like peeking at how different types of hygrometers function. It's just blowing my mind here because I saw that there are digital ones and there are some that look like nautical instruments, like very fancy dials kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm finding out that part of that is function. It's like some of them it looks like there's like 6 different ways you can make a hygrometer.
Oh, interesting.
And one of them is actually using a polished metal mirrored surface that it's cooled. Like basically there's like a dew point when dew gathers on it. That's part of how it's sensing changes in humidity. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's pretty interesting. And by the way, I would imagine at $5 a pop, right? I would imagine these are not like amazingly scientific instruments that I'm working with.
No, but if everything else I've read here is, all of these are amazing. Those might be, there's this one type, it says that measures the changes in electrical resistance across a thin layer of lithium chloride.
Interesting.
And so each of those might just have, and there's another type that uses like a hair element that's like a piece of natural stuff that's attached to a spring. And so
Hmm.
as it gets more or less wet, it pulls or lets that spring go. And that's how so it's probably one of those two. And those also, I'm like, man, that's wild precision. Who figured this stuff out? Humans are wild what people can figure out. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
absolutely. So, Jim, let me walk you through some of the practical applications of this.
Yeah, yeah. Get my head out of the clouds, put my feet in the dirt. Tell me what's going on here.
First of all, the hygrometer has a temperature gauge on it. And that's really interesting. Let me ask you a couple questions. If the temperature is hotter than fill in the blanks.
If the temperature is hotter than 75 degrees,
No, if
it's sweaty.
that not than. If the
Oh,
temperature
I see.
is hotter than
Then,
fill in the blank.
then my sweat will be heavier more quickly,
Yes. And
and my bagpipes will get. Oh man, I always get this wrong. Flat?
I mean, I think you just did that, just to put on a good show for the audience. But yeah, the warmer the temperature, the sharper the pitch of
That's the
pipes is
one.
gonna be.
Temperature goes up, so does the pitch.
You need me, Jim. That was bad. Yeah, the temperature goes up, you can expect the pitch to be higher. And if the temperature goes down, you can expect the pitch to be lower.
Mhm.
Let's just say, for starters.
Oh, that's
Okay,
for
now,
sure.
So one of the things that you can do, and I was chatting with Callum Beaumont at some point about this as well, and then maybe the tuning interview that I did with him. When you get to the event where you're going to play at, you can take a hygrometer and see what the temperature is inside the practice room that you're in.
Mm.
And then you could take another hygrometer or the same one, doesn't really, but another one would be even better so that, you didn't have to disturb the original one. But then you can take the other hygrometer and put it up on the stage
Mm.
for a second, like just go up for 5 minutes, put it on the stage. And then you could say, well, okay, so the stage is 75 degrees. My tuning room is 70 degrees.
Mm.
Therefore, when I move from the tuning room to the stage, what can I expect my pipes to do?
Gonna go a little sharp.
Yeah. And by the way, maybe you go up there and they go flat. That's not going to happen. But at least then you're like, that's interesting. When that change happened, the resulting things seem to happen. And then over enough time, you start to learn the basics, right? You start to learn how it's all going to work.
Looking at what just barely happened as you were showing us your hygrometer, though, it occurs to me like this is important. If you're going to do that, you got to put these hygrometers down in the room. If you're just carrying it around in your hand and going, what is it in the
That's right.
practice room? And then go into the
Yes,
stage, go, what is
Love
it
that.
here? That wouldn't quite
Yeah.
be accurate, would it?
exactly. So holding it in your hand is going to give you a false reading. That's something I've learned just because, if I pick this thing up, so right now it's 25 and I haven't been touching it. And I'll just hold it in my hand for a minute and we'll see what happens.
I bet most of us who have played or competing or otherwise indoors have had this experience where you get it just right in the green room. Then you go out on the stage and you're like, what in the world happened? Like
Yes.
everything, because of course the drones change at a different rate to what the chanter does. And so it's not just like everything goes a little sharp or a little flat. It's just like everything goes in all directions is what it feels like.
And if it's wildly different, you're going to be in big trouble.
Yes,
Usually
and I
it's
have
only,
been.
and usually at a real competition, they go through great effort to try to make sure the tuning rooms are as close to the playing room as reasonably possible.
Mhm.
Cool. What else happens if the temperature is less?
Temperature goes down, pitch goes down, and my fingies get cold. And so it's hard to move them.
Sure. What else?
Oh, condensation probably behaves a little differently. And so then like my reeds, because I play synthetic, they're definitely more likely to shut off on me sooner in cold weather than in hot.
Oh yeah. So it's up to 37 now. It was at 25 and I've just had it in my hand for a couple minutes and it shot up to 37. It is not 37% humidity in here. It's only 25. But yeah, the other thing that happens in the cold is condensation, for sure. So the second part of this puzzle is what's happening inside your pipe bag as you're playing. That's the other thing. And can you put a hygrometer inside your pipe bag and monitor it? There's no super convenient way yet that I've figured out.
It'd be hard, right? I'm trying to think, could you do a probe or something like that and have that coming out to a dial you could see? But then,
Yeah, you could do it.
yeah. It'd be tricky.
But there's no convenient way. And then especially with cane, I'm playing the sheepskin bag. So
Yeah.
you would need to find a way to get a probe in and out of there without the zipper. And then where does the probe have to be to not get a false reading?
I mean, it'd have to be like in the body of the bag, right? Because if it's anywhere too close
I think
to
it would have to be suspended in the middle of the bag because
Yeah.
if it's down in the bag, you're going to get a way high reading just because if condensation was forming, that's where it would be forming.
And you'd
right?
also be like, wow, my hygrometer says that the my bag seasoning numbers are off the charts
Yeah.
because it would just be swimming in it.
Yeah, and it would get disgusting. Yeah, so there would need to be some sort of magical way to suspend it in the bag without causing any other problems. So anyway, at least for the moment, I don't have a way to do that. However, I do have the power of speculation, Jim.
Hey, that's
Okay.
good. Yep. Okay.
So walk down the path of raw speculation with me. Okay. When you play your bagpipes in normal conditions and without direct sunlight, because that would change things considerably, but without direct sunlight, what happens to the temperature inside the bag as you play?
It's going to go up.
Is that true? Is that always true?
I think it's always going to be true because I don't think that my breath, me blowing into it, is going to have a cooling effect on the inside of the bag
I like it.
at any point. At least not in hypothetical situations. Maybe I could imagine a situation where that's possible.
Sure. So the temperature inside your bag is going to go up, but there would be a ceiling to how high it would go up, right?
Sure, yeah. I mean, it couldn't go up
What's the
higher
ceiling?
than the temperature that is my lungs. The inside of my lungs would be the
Exactly.
maximum possible temperature.
You and I are we're talking the same
We're
language.
speculating right
This
along
is some
together
dad
here.
science right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, my body temperature, which by the way, you and I know because it's sickness season, that's 98.6 degrees optimally. So let's just round up and call it 100 degrees, right? So let's say my breath is 100 degrees. Is it 100 degrees? I don't know. We could measure it.
We should be clear that we're talking about Fahrenheit. We Americans don't just run incredibly hot all the time.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, and we're definitely talking in Fahrenheit because we don't use the dumb numbers. We use
The
smart numbers.
dumbers, that's what we call them.
Yeah. So 100 degrees, yes, Fahrenheit, Jim, to your point. By the way, I heard a compelling argument for the imperial system of a variety of different measurements, but we're not going to get into that right now. So, because I don't think
I could see the sidetrack light turn on in your eyes there.
I want to talk about it, but I'm not going to. So anyway, let's pretend our breath is 100 degrees. It doesn't really matter what it is. The point is, if it's 73 degrees here in the room, so if the inside of my pipe bag is starting at 73 degrees, what's going to happen as I blow in? Conceptually, the temperature of the bag is going to go up, but it's not going to go any higher than 100 degrees.
So go up for a while, but it's not going to go up indefinitely.
And by the way, we know this because eventually the chanter-reed pitch stabilizes, right?
Yeah.
So that must mean there's a ceiling temperature inside the bag. At least I think that must mean that. So we know as we play the pipes, the temperature is going to go up over time. Now, what else do we know? If the humidity is 30% here, what's the humidity inside the bag going to do?
Well, I mean, it would match your lungs, I would imagine. Same kind of thing. Though I have no idea what the humidity of human breath typically is.
Yeah, I've done some basic research on this, and there is a little bit of debate about this.
Was your research you breathing on a hygrometer? Just like,
No. No, although people have attempted that kind of research, although in a very unconvincing way, which will inevitably lead to the wet blower, dry blower debate. But basically, okay, the humidity of your breath is 100% saturated air.
100% saturated. Gotcha.
So it's 100% humidity, yeah. Basically, or mid to high 90s. So let's just call it really highly saturated air. And so as you blow into your pipes and you're playing them for longer and longer, what's happening to the humidity inside the bag?
Going up.
It's going up, and then it's going to go up all the way to probably 100% humidity.
So we're heading toward 100 degrees and 100% inside the bag. And probably no matter where we actually are physically in the world, the exterior environment isn't going to match that.
Correct. So 100 degrees Fahrenheit and 100% humidity inside the bag is basically where we're headed. I don't know if that's exactly where we're headed or not. Okay. Now, the real question here, I think, the real important question is, how does the outside environment interact with the inside environment, right? That's what playing the pipes and getting the pipes to be stable and getting them to stay in tune is all about. How do we balance the relationship between the inside of the bag and the outside of the bag? Are you ready for another story?
Yes.
There's this thing in Northeast US called the Glasgow Lands Highland Games. It happens in the middle of Massachusetts in July. What's the weather in the middle of Massachusetts in July, Jim? Do you know?
I haven't been there, but I'm assuming muggy and humid.
Yes, it's very hot and it's very humid. Ooh, and the other important little detail here is a lot of Glasgow lands is in the shade. So it's like high 90s, shaded, 100% humidity, right?
Mm,
Like you just move and you're sweating.
yeah.
Okay. So it's not comfortable. However, if the outside conditions are high 90s, 100% humidity or very high percent humidity, and you're in the shade, okay, and you get your bagpipes out, and well, inside the bag are starting off at a very high temperature and very high humidity, what can you predict about what the pipes are going to do on a day like that?
I mean, I would predict that you're basically pre-warmed up. It's like as soon as you start blowing it up, you probably have a really short distance to go to just get to that equilibrium state.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a very short distance, right? It's a
Mm.
very short distance temperature wise and humidity wise. So are your pipes going to change in tuning in conditions like that?
I would think no. I mean, yes,
Yeah,
but not much. Like maybe a
exactly.
tiny bit.
It's actually remarkable. We used to call that the Glasgow Lands effect. As a matter of fact,
Hmm.
I still do.
Hmm.
That's how I think of it, right? Because in the band, it was always easy to get a great sound that day because you could stop playing for 10 minutes. And as long as you didn't put the pipes down someplace cooler or do something strange, or you didn't walk out in the direct sunlight, that would
Yeah.
change things, right? That's going to heat things up. That direct sunlight's going to be nasty. But if you stay in the shade, you could stand there for 10 minutes, fire up your pipes again, and they'll still be in tune. Next question. How long before moisture starts forming on your drone reeds on a day like that? It's very high humidity, remember?
Right. Yeah, but if I'm not I would think that even though it's high humidity, because everything's about the same, you'd probably be able to go way longer than usual without having moisture gather on stuff because that condensation,
I'll do you
there
one
wouldn't be
more.
that there wouldn't be
I'll
that
do you one
differential.
better.
Yeah.
I'll do you one better, Jim. Condensation never forms on
It
your
just
pipes.
doesn't happen.
Yeah, the humidity is not the problem. A lot of people assume that humidity is the problem. No,
Mm.
it's condensation. And condensation forms when high humidity air hits a cold surface. That's when condensation forms. And so if you're at 100 degrees, and you could probably look this up, like what's the dew point at 100 degrees Fahrenheit and so on and so forth, and it would be a certain temperature. And then as long as the surfaces of your bagpipes remain above the dew point temperature, condensation will never form.
Hmm.
So the real enemy for the pipes when they're getting wet is condensation. But if you're in a really warm environment, condensation is never going to form. So Glasgow Lands is theoretically the perfect place to play your bagpipes.
So it's a little
Because,
gross to imagine that you're basically standing inside of a giant pipe bag.
yes,
I can't help imagining that.
yeah, it's very
Gross.
uncomfortable for your body and it's very sweaty. If you could find a recording studio to go into that and you could get the studio to be, in the
Yeah.
90s with 100% humidity inside the studio, that would be a great place to record your pipes because they would be stable and they would never move.
Yeah. Cue.
Concept theoretically. It's always
Yeah.
in theory. Yeah.
So now let's see how many hobbyist bagpipers are now setting up those tiny one-person saunas in their backyards with microphones. Let's see what we can get out of
Noise.
this.
Yeah. Okay, but now let's flip that around. What's the worst possible conditions to play in when it comes to your pipes getting wet?
I'll tell you because I've been there.
Yeah.
It would be at Alta Ski Resort in Utah, middle of the winter, as the sun has just disappeared behind the mountains.
Amen, my friend. Yep. No, you're totally right. And so for pipers, St. Patrick's Day that's the ultimate, right? Your pipes are getting
Yeah.
soaked.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
now-
a rough one.
Why do your pipes get soaked on St. Patrick's Day? It's not because it's raining or whatever. It's because of condensation. So you're playing in a cold environment.
Yeah.
So all of the surfaces on your pipes are cold. The wood is cold. The bag is cold. Everything is cold. The reeds are cold. And then meanwhile, what are you doing inside your pipe bag? You're doing the same old thing. You're getting the temperature and the humidity in particular is going up theoretically to 100%. So now your humidity is going up to 100% against really cold surfaces. You're basically just going to get huge pools of water.
Mhm.
By the way, have you ever had a glass of lemonade on a really hot day, Jim?
I probably have. I think
Oh,
what comes
shit.
more clearly to mind is like seeing it in movies all the time.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So a really cold glass of ice cold water or lemonade on a hot day. And what forms on the side of the glass?
Yeah, it's just sweating. It's
It
just
just
soaking wet.
sweats.
Yeah. I mean,
And
that's
then
part of the beauty of it, right?
and you sometimes get to the point where the water beads up and just starts
Yeah.
moving on you, right?
Hmm.
And that is the same thing. A cold glass of lemonade on a hot day is the same thing as a cold drone reed
Mm.
or something like that. It's the same thing as a cold drone reed inside of your sauna pipe bag.
I had an interesting experience with this. I don't think I mentioned it on the show before. Maybe I messaged you about it just because I thought it was interesting. I had a Doug Tipple PVC flute, and it was middle of the summer. Must have
Yep.
been last summer. And so my AC was running in the house. So that's the environment I was in. And the flute itself is made of PVC, very thin walled, and so it's matching the cool room. And then of course I have my fingers on the flute. So
Yeah.
right where my fingers rest, it's warm.
Yes.
Then I'm blowing through the flute. And then I looked at the inside of the flute just to look in there, and I realized there was that really fine coating of condensation all around the whole inside of the flute,
Except for where your fingers made
exactly where
contact.
my fingers rested. Yeah, I
Oh,
could
that's
see
a great
exactly
story.
where my fingers and thumbs were sitting perfectly dry.
By
Bone
the way,
dry.
if you can ever get a picture of that, I would want that picture.
I tried to take a picture. Of course, you can imagine it's hard to take a picture of the
Yeah.
inside of a flute, but I
Yeah.
bet it's in my camera roll somewhere. I'll go take a look.
But that's an amazing anecdotal story of exactly what I'm talking about. So you're blowing hot, moist air through a cold flute, and condensation forms on the cold flute, but where the flute is warmer, it does not form
Yeah,
because
you
it's
can
all
see
condensation.
around the holes, of course, but also where it was resting on my thumb. There's just a dry patch. There was just nothing there.
That's awesome. And that's exactly the whole thing.
Mm.
So when we're playing our pipes, right, it's all about avoiding condensation, not about how long you play. That's the thing. And then with something like a hygrometer, there's just more and more evidence. And anything below 70 degrees for me, and condensation forms quickly.
Hmm.
And then weirdly, anything above 70 degrees, I get ample time to play before condensation forms on my pipes.
I see. Like you still would hit a problematic condensation point, but it's like you get tired
It's
out.
much later. Yeah.
Like you're done by then.
Yeah, I'm done by then. Yeah, so 70 degrees is like the $1 million thing. I think a lot of pipers at the high levels intuitively know this. Like
Hmm.
good pipe majors at the Worlds intuitively know this. The way the Worlds works right now sucks, Jim.
Hmm.
And the reason why has to do specifically with the fact that if you play your bagpipes at 10:30 in the morning outside in Scotland, it just doesn't matter. Even on a nice day, it's cold.
Hmm.
And that means you're going to get way more condensation in the pipes. So a late draw in the MSR at the Worlds is mint.
Hmm.
And you're literally at a huge advantage. You have longer to tune up the pipe core, and you're at way less risk of screwing up the pipes for their whole rest of the day if you're on later in the morning. And it all has to do with the temperature, just because that temperature causes rapid onset of condensation. If you can get anywhere close to 70 degrees, you're in a way better position to avoid condensation. And the game, like for a grade 1 pipe band, let's say, the game is getting really well in tune with absolute minimal playing time on the pipes because of the condensation problem.
Hmm. I remember when I was a kid competing with the high school pipe band that I played with, the local games that we did there in the town that I grew up in was held in a park with lots of trees. Really lovely park. Great place to be during the summer because there's lots of shade, but it's dappled shade, right? There's patches of sunlight and patches of shade.
Yeah.
And I remember prepping to march into the circle. And of course, part of the circle's in the sun and part of it's in the shade.
Yes.
And I remember thinking to myself,
Don't
okay,
do that.
I sure hope I get in the shade, because what I was thinking was I'll be more comfortable there, right?
You will be, but so in this direct sunlight, I mean, what color are all bag covers? Very dark.
Very
right?
dark. Yeah, that's right. I'm like dark blue, black.
And then, yeah.
Yeah.
And then what color is the wood of your pipes? It's black.
Yeah.
That's why they call
ultimately
it blackwood,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh.
Yeah, it's black, right? So when you stand in the direct sunlight, your pipes are getting super heated. So
Yeah.
so you're not worried about condensation at that point. It's just absolute superheating of the pipes. I bet you it gets to 200 degrees Fahrenheit inside your bag when you're in direct sunlight. I bet you. I don't know for sure, but it's hot. It's also why in extreme conditions, you hear stories of people putting ice chips in their bags and stuff like that.
Mm.
It doesn't work because it works for maybe 45 seconds, but in 45 seconds, those ice cubes are melted.
And then you just have a really wet bag.
No, you don't have a wet bag at all. It all just evaporates and leaves the instrument. And you're just left with the same problem again, just, 5 minutes
Mm.
later. And, you don't know when it's going to wear off. So it's like the ice chips thing never really worked.
What if you swallow dry ice? So then your air that you're blowing into
I think that would burn. I think that would burn your tongue.
Yeah,
and
but would
your
it be worth it?
esophagus, and it
Would it be
would
worth
cause major problems.
Maybe.
All right, we'll look into it. I've heard stories of bag bands
Mm.
wrapping white electrical tape around their drones in the direct sunlight.
Oh, interesting. I think I've seen that actually.
Yeah.
'Cause I've been very obsessed with bag bands just recently, and I've been watching a lot of performances, and some of them are outside.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right. I think I saw a band that had spirals of white on their drones, and I was thinking, decoration.
Yeah. By the way,
Oh.
and also the Scottish Power thing, they have those reflective mirrors
Yeah,
on
the
the
space
necks of the
blankets.
bag.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the same thing. They're trying to deflect the direct sunlight away from that area to prevent the superheating effect.
Hmm.
I think you need the reflective on the entire bag, probably, but it would conceptually work.
But then, so sometimes we do feel, perhaps, maybe it was just me, but sometimes we feel a little bit frustrated that the games organizers have decided to put the competition circle out in the sports field in
Yeah.
the direct sunlight when
Yes.
we could have had shade over here. But there's often thought behind that, which is something like, we got to make it so, as much as possible, the entire band is in the same external circumstances, external to their bagpipes, I mean.
Yes.
Because when
Half
you end
and
up with the
half is
half and half
really bad.
thing, yeah.
Yeah. That means the tuning is going to change quite differently depending on where you're
Mm.
standing. And then the other thing is you need to be able to guarantee shade for all competitors.
Yeah,
That's
throughout
what sometimes
the whole
you
day.
have. Yeah, and then it changes a lot throughout the whole day. If you could find a grove where it's mostly shaded most of the time, I think the Maxville Grade 1 circle is sort of famous. I think it's called the Grove. And I think it's famously actually somewhat shaded for most of the day, maybe. I don't know. But if you could find a spot like that, that would be mint. But yeah, so the hygrometer has been key for me to start to figure that out. Here's just a couple of things I've learned over the years. And I don't want people to just take my word for this, but just some of the things I found is that I want to store my bagpipes when I'm done playing. I want my bagpipes to be stored between 40 and 60% humidity. Okay. Anything less than 40% humidity, and I'm going to experience the negative effects of things having dried out next time
Do you
I
worry
play.
about bacterial growth or anything
So
like
that's
that?
and then above 60, you can sometimes get fuzz and mold. So I don't want to store above 60, and then you don't want to store below 40. 40 to 60 is the sweet spot.
Do you use those soakable guitar humidifiers in your pipe case or something like that to achieve that? Or
I do not, Jim. And you might have to cut the video or, realign the video here, but I actually brought a prop today.
oh, okay, yeah.
This is my actual band bagpipe. I mentioned I'm going to Germany.
Oh, it's in like a garment bag.
That is a super large Ziploc bag, Jim.
Wow.
But you
For
could
a
use
giant sandwich.
any see-through bag would be great. And I've seen people do it with a non-see-through bag. But my pipes have been living in here. And this is the only way for me to keep my sheep and cane going in the winter
Interesting.
that I've figured out, right? It's so hard to try to humidify this room to 40 to 60% humidity. It's so hard. That thing right there is a giant office size humidifier. But it's impossible to keep it going, right? In New York, it's so dry. It's impossible. So what I do is I practice my pipes, and then when I'm done, they go back in the bag. Now I like the see-through bag because you might not be able to see it here, but there's a hygrometer right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, 51% in there.
Okay, so it's the perfect, that's in the sweet spot then. Huh?
Yep. And if it got too high, I would open up the bag a little bit to let more air in. And if it got too low, any idea what to do?
Would you just breathe into it?
Yeah, if it got, well, no,
like
if it
open a
got
little
too
hole and go-
low, if it did get too low, which by the way, it actually lasts quite a while without getting too low. It's pretty cool. But if it does get too low, I just play my pipes,
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
right? So I have a practice session and I play my pipes for half an hour or something. That gets lots of moisture in the bag and everything and in the reeds. And then when I put the pipes back in the bag, they create their own special little environment in there. But
So you don't have any kind of like sponge or anything like that. The bagpipes are the humidifier for themselves. in
Amen,
that.
my brother. Now, it
Wow,
helps to
that's
have a
pretty
high
cool.
bag. I don't know if you'd get away with that with a synthetic bag or not. By the way, even if you play synthetic bag and reeds and stuff, you still want to store your pipes in 40 to 60% humidity. That's essentially what Yori's chanter cap does and the Piper's Pal, these chanter caps, right?
Yeah.
They make sure the chanter reed stays in that nice sweet spot. Now, those chanter reeds and stuff, I think there's different options, and there's like the 80% option and the 70% option. And the real risk, right? One of the things that's happened to me several times with the tone enhancer is I've left it there for a couple of weeks without playing that particular reed. And by the time I open it up again, there's mold on the reed.
Yeah. Tasty.
Which is bad. And basically that reed was ruined.
Yeah.
Because there's quite a bit of mold, and so you just got to be careful with those hygrometers. And I don't need the tone protector cap or anything like that when I'm doing the bag, right?
Because it's like a giant tone protector.
Exactly.
For the whole thing.
It's like a giant tone protector. Yeah. There are simpler ways to go about this as well. And they do have really fancy like Bluetooth hygrometer rigs that you can buy for amounts of money. And then you wouldn't need this. You could just have a pipe case that was pretty airtight.
Yeah.
And then you could just put your pipes in the case and shut it.
Anytime you're curious, you check your phone or whatever to see what it's like inside your pipe case.
Yeah. One of the things I like to do with my Ziploc bag, though, is, and it's deflated on me, but I like to keep it fairly inflated so that there's like lots of room for the air to kind of like, for everything to breathe. Because when it's too tight, I do feel like the sheepskin bag starts to look a little bit like yucky and like it hasn't been breathing right. Yeah. I don't know. It's just, that's just superstition, but I do like to keep it kind of ballooned. So it's like a little Mars habitat inside.
Yeah. But a little, like, to be super specific, when you put your pipes into the plastic bag there, do you take your blowpipe out so that there's a really open channel to the inside of the pipe bag as well? Or is it just as you played it? I guess I'd imagine you break down the bass drone or something so it'll fit. But other than that, like, how open is the inside of your pipe bag to the rest of the environment?
So right now it's quite closed because like right now it's so dry that I'm trying to keep the moisture in the pipes.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And I'm definitely not playing enough to be worried about excessive moisture. Like you never play the band pipes too much because then you're going to run into big problems in band practice. So the band pipe only gets played 15 to 20 minutes a day in normal situations. And then frankly, it's the middle of the winter. So I'm not even playing every day. I'm playing at least those pipes once every couple days right now. Well, and I'm ramping up now because I'm about to go on a trip, but the bag helps keep things so the cane drone reeds don't dry out, right? The cane drone reeds, you can kind of picture a sponge. What happens to a sponge when it dries out? It like totally changes shape and it's so rigid and gross. And the cane literally won't work. You set up the cane for their equilibrium state, which is,
sorry.
Wow.
Just trying to make my chair more comfortable there.
I didn't realize what I was saying was so surprising. But so you got to keep them sort of like moist.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, even if we don't play with cane drone reeds, we've probably all seen it with our chanter reeds that they can get real warped if we let them dry out completely.
Totally. And I don't know, but you wonder about the wood of your actual pipes as well. Does the wood get dry? And then does that have a negative effect on the sound? I don't know. You just wonder. And so anyway, I want those pipes to live in a nice, natural, Scotland-like environment as much as reasonably possible.
Right.
I'm just throwing it out there. This works in the other direction. If I do soak my pipes when I play them, or if it is like 85% humidity in here, then you just got to be aware of the opposite problem. We don't want to store the pipes in conditions that are too damp either, because then you can run into trouble. So you wouldn't want to put the pipes in a bag in a situation like that. I always put the pipes in the bag for traveling because airplanes are notoriously cold and dry, especially in those overhead compartments. And so what can happen is your pipes are sounding beautiful in America, and then you get on the plane, the pipes dry out, and then you have to get the pipes going in a brand new climate with a dry sponge style bagpipe. The two things combined makes it a nightmare, right?
There's a part of me that's saying to myself, like, well, Jim, stick with synthetic everything.
But even so, the moisture thing is still real. If for nothing else than your chanter reed stability.
Yeah.
By the way, do you guys have basements in Utah?
Yes.
Like in Florida, they really don't. Or
No, we
deserts
don't
and
even
stuff.
have a water table up here. So yeah,
Yeah.
you'd be surprised to find a house without a basement
Is it
here in
cool and
Utah.
damp in your basement?
Yeah, well, it's cool and dry. That's the thing.
Oh, it's dry in your basement.
I guess comparatively, it probably is damp, but the
Yeah.
general
Well,
environment is dry enough.
yeah. You can put a hygrometer down there to find out.
Mm,
But one of the things I have done is because my house is dry, like in the summertime, if it's 90 degrees, the air conditioning's cranking all day long. And it ends up being very dry in the main house. So what
mm,
I've done is I've started storing the pipes in my basement when I'm done
mm,
playing because the basement is, 40, 50% humidity usually down there most of the time.
mm,
And so by storing my pipes down in the basement, I don't let the pipes dry out in the house.
mm.
Anybody have a band where every week people show up to band and their pipes are just wild?
Yeah, I've definitely seen that happen. It's like, what on earth could have happened?
Yeah, like what the hell have you been doing to your pipes? And
Like
or and
just
more,
leaving them in the case shouldn't have made it this bad.
yep, exactly. And or and more, we had that problem as well. And I wish I had this knowledge then because I
Mm,
would have taught people this. And I think it would have been a lot better. And the Yori chanter caps have definitely helped bands in this area quite a bit because you can keep the chanter a little bit moist. But I would invest the money in the Ziplocs because it's just quite good. If you just do the Ziploc thing, it's a little bit annoying, but if you just do the Ziploc thing, then your pipes sound pretty good out of the box every single day, just like they would in the summertime.
I just can't help imagining a giant sandwich in that giant Ziploc bag. I
I
just
know
feel
that'd
like
be a big sandwich. You put the party subs in these bags.
that's it. It's
You
a
know,
party sub bag. Yeah.
I bought a pack of 3 giant bags, and I don't remember exactly what size they are. Like, are they like 80 gallon?
Please tell me that what you've been considering is making a giant sandwich to fit one of the other bags.
This is an XX large, and it is actually Ziploc brand.
Does it have a spot where you can write your name in marker so none of the other kids at school take your sandwich?
Yep, it does.
Amazing.
But anyway, the 8 years ago I bought these, but I'm thinking about buying another set of 3, Jim. They're not that cheap, but they're not that expensive, and they're so worth it.
Well, if it lasts you 8 years, it sounds like that you could justify some expense pretty
Just be
well.
careful, like you got to be. I've screwed things up with the Ziploc bag too, right? So if you let the Ziploc bag get to 100% humidity and then you leave the pipes in there for 8 days, all your crap is going to get messed up. So
Yeah, that sounds like a yucky mess I wouldn't want to touch it afterward. I don't want slimy bagpipes.
they're definitely not slimy with 50%. And yeah, you got to be willing to check in on your pipes and play them fairly regularly. It's not like you can store your pipes in the Ziploc bag in between band practices and, only play once a week. That's still not going to work, folks.
Yeah.
But it's just the storage is so important. And then the hygrometer plays a big role in that for me.
Mm.
So anyway, just some thoughts. The hygrometer is a gadget that I like.
Okay, so in case any of us were feeling like Andrew Douglas is just a Luddite, hates all technology, there are some things he likes.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, and I don't want to take credit for anything, but I remember I was at an Inverary practice many years ago. And well, many, I don't know, before COVID for sure.
I was there, Gandalf.
Yeah, but I remember just taking the hygrometer out and it was on the table near me during practice because I was just curious. And it went from like 67 degrees and 60% humidity in the practice room. And then by the time we got into the main practice and by the time we were playing a lot, it was like 83 degrees, 85 degrees, and, way high humidity in the room. Just
That's
all the
interesting.
bodies and stuff. And then the pipes start to get wet, especially when we stop playing and then the room starts to cool down. But the
Yeah.
surfaces inside of the bag are, this, that, and the other thing. And I remember Allie Henderson, it started to click for him. Like, oh, things are changing a lot here. And that would have, even bro science would lead you to the discovery that like, aha, this is the cause of a lot of the moisture. It's not how long you play, it's how much condensation is forming. That's the key thing you got to be careful of. The warmer it
but
is, the longer you can play.
It's an understandable, what do they call that? Like a causation, correlation, confusion, right? It's understandable that it would feel like, oh, the longer I play, the more, my stuff gets gummed up with moisture, which like
Barton,
is the case. But like you're saying, like the key ingredient here is what's the outside environment to your bagpipe?
yeah,
What's the interior? What's the difference?
exactly. By the way, the Dumbarton Major 2 years ago, which is about 3 weeks before the Worlds, it was bad weather. Inverary played in kind of crappy weather.
Meaning cloudy and rainy?
Cloudy and maybe it definitely wasn't pouring.
Mm.
No, maybe it was raining a little bit on us. So it was cold and crappy kind of weather. And then basically right after we were done, and we were on early, we were on first or second, and then we were done. And whenever the band is on early, that's cool because it gives me the opportunity to go watch Field Marshal tune
Oh,
up.
for sure.
Great,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, makes
And
sense.
and that was the plan. So like we were done, pipes on the table, and I went over to watch Field Marshal tune up. And right about as I was arriving, and Field Marshal was early in the tune up. So they had, I don't know, 45 minutes left to go before they were on. But so right as I was arriving, the sun came out and it suddenly became a beautiful day. And what I remember about that, and I might just be making it up, but what I remember about that is I remember watching Richard. You could see it sinking in that he was about to get a run of really good weather.
Yeah.
And he went bananas. And he went bananas because he knew for the next 45 minutes,
Yeah.
I can spend as much time as I want tuning the band. I don't have to worry about things getting wet. I don't have to worry about overplaying or anything like that. So they just went crazy on the tuning. And yeah, of course, they smoked everybody.
I can imagine that.
My memory could be wrong, but I'm 99% sure FM won that contest.
Probably having been rainy and then having the sun come out, it's not only both temperature and humidity would have gone up to that ideal spot, huh?
Yeah, well, and the main thing is the temperature, right?
Yeah.
The main thing is the temperature was high enough that you're not going to get a lot of condensation.
Yeah.
A nice stable environment, and then there's lots of residual moisture probably hanging around. So it's nice and humid, so it's going to be super stable, and you're not going to get any condensation on the pipes, and so they just went for it. They spent tons of time and they fixed every little thing because you were in the position to. It was a cool moment. And I might be making it up, if I asked Richard, he'd probably be like,
what are you talking about?
He'd probably be like, Andrew, what are we
You're
talking
making
about
stuff
here?
up.
But at least in my mind, he saw the sun come out and then
Yeah.
he just got this huge boost of,
Yeah.
energy.
That element of the uncontrollable things that go into the competitions, right? It's like we try to control for them, of course, but at some point you just have to embrace that,
Yeah,
And if
well, I
you-
think so. I disagree with certain people when they say, oh, we need to move the world's inside and we need to control all the environments and, blah, blah, blah. I disagree. A big part of this game is the elements and the strategy and so on.
I feel like personally, I would hear any kind of argument, but like I feel like it's art anyway, and we're doing art competitions, and so it's like if it were possible to get to a perfectly controlled, what's the word when there's no opinion involved at all? It's no longer, the word isn't
It's
imperial,
objective, completely
objective. That's right. If we could get to a point where this was really like a perfectly controllable, objective decision who played the best that day, then that might be something to strive for. But since we can't, the weather's kind of a fun element to throw in there. It's fun to have some dice.
That's right. And unless the weather gets really bad, the great bands are still great, even in bad weather.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is really interesting, right? The last circle at the Worlds in 2024, it rained for at least 30 minutes of our 45-minute tune-up time.
It's a chance to flex for really good bands. To be like, look, in spite of that, look how well we played.
I guess my point is we were just huddled underneath a tent while it rained.
Yeah.
But that's what you do, right? So it's raining, don't play. And it's nice when you're in a really, really good pipe corps. People have the confidence to know that really all we need to do is tune the drones and we're going to be sounding pretty excellent. And then, yeah, if you have the time to deal with the fine-tuning issues, then you do. But, it was a little bit anxious. It's like the last circle of the Worlds, but it just rained. And so we just stood under the tent. And then it was like, I think the rain's going to stop in 5 minutes because on the weather app, it looks like the clouds are leaving. I think it's going to stop in 5 minutes. And then, 7 or 8 minutes later, it stopped. And then we were like, go. And then it was like, a little bit wild, trying to do some quick fine tuning things and, start to get the drone settled and whatever. But it's pretty cool. It's fun. I think it's fun. And it helps to have the knowledge of how to tune a set of bagpipes.
Sure, of course.
A
Yeah.
digital tuner, just your daily reminder. A digital tuner is not going to teach you about tuning strategy and environment and how things are going to change, right? That's just something that you're going to learn over time by diving in, doing things the right way, and just enjoying the game.
Hey everybody, Andrew Douglas here from the Piper's Dojo, and I just want to say thanks so much for listening to today's iteration of the podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard here today, it would be super helpful to us and to a lot of bagpipers out there trying to find us. If you could give us a top-notch review on whatever platform you're using to listen to this podcast, particularly Apple, iTunes, and Spotify and things like that, your review would be really, really helpful. So if you have a moment today, definitely go over there and help us out. Other than that, until we meet again on the podcast or somewhere else, thanks again for listening.
Just turn me on, Jim. That came out wrong.
Gonna save that soundbite for
Yeah.
future blackmailing purposes.